Have you ever imagined touching someone who had already died and having them recognize you? It sounds like something out of a movie, but this type of story is more common than you might think among people who have had a near-death experience. Imagine the scene. You are outside your body, floating between what they call life and death, and suddenly you see a loved one, someone who has been gone for years, approaching you. And when you reach out your hand, that person touches yours and recognizes you. Not with words, but with a look, with an energy that goes beyond any logic or scientific explanation. What happens in that moment is something that not even medicine can fully understand. What is this plane where the dead see us? How is it possible for someone who has already passed away to react to our touch as if the connection were still alive? Stay with me until the end, because what you are about to discover now may surprise you, and perhaps even change your view of what we call life. It is in these kinds of moments, silent, profound, almost unreal, that logic disappears, and all that remains is the feeling that the soul lives on, and that there are bonds that not even death can break. And if you have ever experienced something similar, even in a dream or in a memory that seemed too real to be just imagination, I really want to know. If this subject makes sense to you, leave a comment below with what touched you the most, or if you have ever felt the presence of someone who has passed away. Each story shared here builds this community where no one feels alone when experiencing the inexplicable. And if you feel that this kind of reflection is part of what you believe in, or what you want to understand better, like this video now and subscribe to the channel. Your participation here is what keeps this content alive, reaching more people who, like you, are searching for answers, signs, or simply a deeper connection with something beyond what the eyes see. And it is precisely along this line between the visible and the invisible that the next part of the story takes us. Science is still trying to explain, based on brain impulses and chemical changes, what happens in the final moments of consciousness. But those who have had a near-death experience speak of something that goes far beyond the biological. Many report that immediately after cardiac arrest or intense trauma, they had the sensation of detaching themselves from their body, as if they were floating above the scene, observing everything clearly, without pain, without fear, just with a strange serenity. And it is in this moment of transition that many see familiar faces, people who have been gone for a long time. Some appear with a sparkle in their eyes, others extend their hand, and even without words, there is an inner certainty. I know you. It is not a common memory, like reliving a dream or an old memory. It is something that seems too real to be questioned. There are reports of people who, even though they had never met a deceased relative in life, were able to describe them in detail after the NDE, including marks on their face, the way they walked, or the timbre of their voice. It is as if, in that invisible plane, there were a kind of hidden truth where all souls recognize each other, regardless of the passage of time or their earthly coexistence. This phenomenon has been called by some researchers a spiritual recognition field, and it raises a profound hypothesis. Perhaps the identity of the soul goes far beyond what the human mind is capable of comprehending. Different people, distinct cultures, languages that have never crossed paths, but their stories are surprisingly similar. They speak of light, peace, and expanded consciousness, and above all of reunions that completely change the way they see life after they return. Because when someone who has already died looks into your eyes and recognizes you, it doesn't matter how many years have passed or what beliefs you carry, something inside you changes. It's as if, for a few seconds, you touch the backstage of what exists behind reality. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the question that everyone wants to know is, how do these souls recognize us? What is there in this invisible bond that survives the death of the body? Comment below. That makes sense to me, if any part of this story touched you in any way. If the body stops working, if the heart stops and the brain goes silent, what's left? For many people, the answer is consciousness. A consciousness that seems to carry not only memories but connections, as if there were a kind of memory of the soul, something that goes beyond time, name, or face. There are impressive accounts of people who, during a near-death experience, were welcomed by loved ones who had already passed away. And it wasn't just a vague sensation. They felt recognized, welcomed. One woman said that when she crossed over to the other side, she saw her grandfather, whom she had never met in life. He looked her in the eyes, smiled, and said his name. When she regained consciousness, she described physical details of him that she only saw later, in an old photo hidden in a family box. She didn't know this person existed, but the reunion happened, and it was as real as any moment lived here. And this raises a powerful question. What if there is some kind of invisible network connecting all the experiences that really matter? Love, loss, unfulfilled promises, hugs that were left in silence. What if these emotional marks do not disappear with death, but continue to vibrate in some layer of what we call reality? Some scholars of spirituality talk about a kind of energetic frequency that transcends matter. Could this be the channel through which we recognize ourselves even outside the body? Perhaps the answer lies less in what we can prove and more in what we can feel. The truth is that there is something profoundly transformative in these accounts. The idea that the connections we make here are not disposable, do not fade with time. On the contrary, they become even purer, as if they were recorded in a plane where only the essence matters. Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because understanding this spiritual memory can completely change the way we see our decisions, our bonds, and even the way we live in the present. Write it down. I'm on this journey too. If this type of reflection speaks to something inside you, many people who have had a near-death experience don't just come back with strange memories or disjointed images. They come back transformed. It's as if something has been unlocked inside them, a clarity they've never experienced before. Most report that on the other side they felt a peace so intense that they can't even describe it in words. But along with that peace also came a kind of revelation, that it wasn't time yet, that there was something important to be done here. Something unfinished. Some speak of a mission, others of repair, but all feel like they were sent back for a reason, as if the simple act of breathing again carries new meaning. And it's curious to see how these messages almost always revolve around the same things: forgiving, starting over, loving more, presently, living more truthfully. One man said that during his NDE, he saw his mother, who had died more than 20 years earlier, telling him with her eyes, "Don't let it go again." He came back with tears in his eyes and a decision, in his mind, to abandon his pride and seek out the son he hadn't seen in over a decade. This reconnection, which seemed impossible, only happened because he understood what really matters. The experience he had taken him from the surface of life and took him straight to the heart of what moves everything, the choices we make and what we put off until later. You can't listen to this type of story and come away unscathed, because deep down, we all know that we're putting off something, a conversation, an apology, a hug that got stuck. And if these experiences show us anything, it's that time here is not infinite, but the impact of our actions can overcome barriers we never imagined. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a part of these stories that speaks of something even more impressive: the feeling of receiving clear instructions, as if the universe or some greater force were revealing the next step of the journey. Comment below. It got me thinking if any part of this message awakened you inside. What if what we call the end is actually just a passage? A change of scenery, where the soul merely changes clothes but remains present, attentive, connected to everything that matters? This idea, as symbolic as it may seem, appears strongly in hundreds of accounts of people who were clinically dead and came back. They say that in that in-between worlds there was no fear. What there was a silent certainty of belonging, as if something or someone was there, waiting. Sometimes it was a relative, other times a faceless presence, but full of love. The most curious thing? This feeling that they were not alone, as if on some level we were never really alone. Many people talk about reunions with people who had already passed away, but who, on that plane, seemed even more alive. And these weren't just memories. They were interactions, feelings that were exchanged without words. One woman reported that when she touched her deceased brother's hand, she felt an energy pass through her body. It wasn't hot or cold. It was as if time had stopped for that moment to happen, a moment in which everything made sense. She returned with the certainty that there is continuity, not only in life but in relationships, and that changes everything. It changes the mindset with which we face our daily lives. It changes the decisions we make. It even changes the way we look at those who are by our side now. Because if we are indeed more than we think we are, perhaps we are just living a chapter in a much larger journey. And this journey seems to have less to do with external achievements and more to do with how we relate to what is invisible: intuition, forgiveness, compassion, bonds that resist time. All of this begins to make more sense when we understand that death may not be an end, but a point of reunion. And if it is true that souls recognize each other even after departure, what are we doing today to keep this connection alive? Now, I want to go even deeper into this subject, because there is a detail in these stories that almost no one notices, but that can reveal what really exists on the other side. Comment below, I feel like we are not alone, if this has affected what you believe. If you've made it this far, it's because this topic has touched something deep inside you, and that's why I want to invite you to join us on this journey. Subscribe to the channel to continue receiving content that makes us think more deeply about life, the soul, and everything that goes beyond what meets the eye. If this message made sense to you, leave a comment below. I'm with you until the end. This not only helps to keep this exchange alive, but also shows that we are building together a space for reflection and real connection. And of course, if this video brought you some peace, some good question, or a new perspective, leave a like. This shows that this content has value and helps us to continue. There is a video here on the side that complements everything we talked about now. Click and continue with me there. The journey is still just beginning.